Good evening, everyone. My name is Amy Rando, and I am the Family Services Officer for the Wakefield Police Department and a Commissioner with the Wakefield Human Rights Commission. On behalf of the Commission, I would like to thank each of you for joining us here tonight on International Women's Day. I would also like to recognize in the audience Town Administrator Steve Mayo, Chief Smith of the Wakefield Police Department, Chief Sullivan of the Wakefield Fire Department, from the Board of Selectmen, Tony Luongo, and Paul Donaco, and also from the School Committee, Greg Liakis. I thank you also for being here for this important event tonight. Today is a global day celebrating the social, economic, and political achievements of women. The day also marks a call to action for accelerating gender parity. First, we will hear from the Wakefield Memorial High School's all-treble a cappella group, She Major, who will be competing this Saturday in Worcester at the International Championship of High School A Cappella Northeast. This is the first time an a cappella group from our high school has advanced to the semifinals of this competition, and they are thrilled to represent their school and the town of Wakefield. Please join me in welcoming She Major.
I wipe my brow and I sweat my rust. I'm breathing in the chemicals. I'm breaking in, shaping up, and checking out on this prison bus. This is it, the apocalypse. I'm waking, I feel it in my bones, enough to make my system go. Welcome to the new age, to the new age, welcome to the new age, to the new age. Whoa, 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 I'm radioactive, radioactive. Whoa, 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 I'm radioactive, radioactive. All systems go, sun hasn't died. Deep in my bones, straight from inside, I'm waking. I feel it in my bones, to make my system glow. Welcome to the new age, to the new age. Welcome to the new age, to the new age. Oh, 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 oh. I'm radioactive, radioactive. Whoa, oh, 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 oh. I'm radioactive, radioactive.
Thank you, She Major. I am honored to have been selected to moderate tonight's panel discussion with 5 amazing local women who have made and continue to make a difference in our community and region. Please join me in welcoming Saritin Rizzuto, Nancy Delaney, Dr. Kim Smith, Rada Frohlichstein, and Susan Wetmore. I could spend the entire hour sharing with you their amazing backgrounds. However, to be respectful of their time and yours, we've included short biographies in the pamphlets we handed out tonight. To start off, ladies. Oh, here, let me pass this off. Who needs a mic? Oh, everyone got one. Okay. To start off, I have just a general question of, and you can answer in any order that you wish, what do you attribute your success to today?
Well, I think success can be measured in many ways, and determination and hard work obviously go very far. But in order to achieve a goal, you have to be willing to make mistakes along the way, and I think that that's really, really important. So if you try something and you really want to succeed at it and it doesn't work, you try a new approach. So I feel like if you've done your best, then you've been successful.
Okay. Success is really relative words because there's a many way, like Susan said, you can measure it, but hard work, perseverance, and an option not to fail. So if you make a decision to do something or achieve something, you have a goal, is literally put in your head, you cannot fail, you will not fail, it's not an option. So no matter what I did in my life, whether I travel or whether I choose a different country to move in, as scary as it is at first, it's just not an option to fail, and that's what it is the most important to me.
Hi, everybody. Kim Smith, Superintendent of the Wakefield Public Schools. It's great to see everyone. Success, that is a really hard question. I saw the questions earlier and thought about it a little bit, and I really thought about two things. One is, from the time I was a very little girl, my mom really encouraged me to be a leader. She always said, be a leader, don't be a follower. And she was probably just trying to keep me to stay away from bad things. But I took it very literally, so I said, okay, I need to be a leader. But she always said, everybody's waiting for somebody else to be brave. Waiting for someone to be brave, so be brave. So that I would say that my mom's influence there really, I've kind of lived that way all my life. And I think the other thing is just putting my complete love and enthusiasm in everything that I do. I think when you give yourself entirely to something, good things just have a way of happening in kind of a fearless way. So I think everybody here knows how much I love the Wakefield Public Schools. It was great walking in here tonight. I just saw some of my former band parents from many years ago that I haven't seen in a long time, and I just love their children, and just think of those, they're just putting a lot of love and enthusiasm into whatever you do in kind of a fearless way, and be brave, and I think things just have a way of maybe working out a little bit.
Great, thank you. And Saritin?
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. First and foremost, I want to thank the Wakefield Human Rights Commission for organizing this and the work that you do on behalf of the town of Wakefield. I truly appreciate this opportunity. And I actually attribute my success to a number of things, and since some of you didn't say much, I feel like I can use your time. So I approach every situation with a preconceived notion of success. So I look at everything. If I walk into an interview, I go into that interview thinking that I already have that job. I'm going in there to confirm it. I go into every situation, every challenge, everything I approach with a positive state of mind. I don't know what it is to quit. I persevere, I try and try again until I reach my goal. In fact, the word quit or quitting does not exist in my vocabulary. I'm mentioning it just to make an example here, but it doesn't. I see everything as a new beginning and something very positive that is going to be born every single day. I surround myself with positive people that manifest the characteristic I'd like to see in myself. So pretty much those are people that inspire me, people that are successful, people of influence, positive people that see the probable in the impossible. I also pour my heart and soul into everything I do. So everything that I decide that I want to take part in, I truly pour my heart and soul into it because I truly believe in it if I decide to do it. And most importantly, I want to say that I attribute my success to Mr. Murphy. Mr. Murphy was a teacher that I had in high school that saw in me what I didn't have the capability to see in myself. He believed in me when I was experiencing a very tough time in high school, and every day he'd say something very positive to me. He'd encourage me to try new things. My only regret was that Mr. Murphy never knew just quite how special he was to me. he said, you're going to graduate high school despite all the challenges you're experiencing, and I'm going to see you at the other end of the stage. And when that day came and I looked across the stage at Mr. Murphy's eyes, the pride that I saw in him was the type of pride you see in your parents, except he wasn't a parent. My parents didn't even come to my graduation, yet he was there with so much pride and so much enthusiasm. And I mean, he was instrumental in what I am and building that foundation in what I would be and what I've yet to become. So I also want to give a round of applause to all the teachers that are in the audience. Miss Buckley up there, one of my favorite school teachers here in Wakefield. Thank you for being so great. Thank you for being my children's Mr. Murphy.
Thank you. Nancy.
So you want to trade seats? I'm not remotely interested in going after you. But since I have to, let me just say I would credit my success, such as it is, with my family, my friends, my mentors, and unlike some of you on the panel, I'm not quite so brave. I don't think I approach things with that. I will not fail, but rather take risks and feel like it's okay to fail and move on and learn, fail again, move on some more. So I think I'll leave it at that, but I think failing is really important as long as you learn something from it. And I've had wonderful, wonderful people who've caught me when I've failed. So.
Thank you, Nancy. My next question is for Dr. Kim Smith. Having dedicated your 27-year career at the Wakefield Memorial High School, what challenges do you think women of the next generation will face?
Okay, so it's actually been 31 years in the Wakefield Public
31.
Schools. It's a really, really long time, 31 years. And maybe to answer that question, I mean, I think the challenges for the young girls and women today are very different than those that I faced in my career. So I spent the first 18 years of my career as the band director at Wakefield High School. And then I went on to Wakefield High School to be the assistant principal and principal for the next 10. And then for the last 3.5, I've been assistant superintendent and superintendent. But when I really think about the challenges I faced as a woman during that time, I really kind of think back to that first 18 years. You may or may not know this, but at that time, particularly in the late 80s and in the 90s, it was exceedingly rare to be a female high school band director. And there really wasn't anyone except for me, to be honest with you. Just as an example, maybe some of my band parents out there will remember that for many years I took my jazz band to the Berkeley Jazz Festival in Boston, and it's a regional festival. The bands would travel up from New York and Pennsylvania and New Jersey and then all of the New England states, and there were 5 divisions, and every division had 20 bands. And every year, the top 2 bands were selected to go on this evening. Some of you nodding, you remember these days, right? The evening festival concert. It was a really huge deal. The Wakefield band, my kids were fantastic, and for 15 consecutive years, we made that night concert, which is really, really special. But I was the only female director in all of those years ever on that stage, which just tells you how lonely that profession was. You know, I really, I didn't really have colleagues or peers or other women, to kind of interact with during that time. I had chosen a career path that was very dominated by men, and I think that part of that was I always felt like I had to work a little bit extra harder. I had to, put in more. I had to be better to achieve, even to get on what I would consider an equal playing field. So, it was really kind of a complex challenge, sort of being alone and picking a field or a career path that, that there really weren't very many women that participated in. And even in my personal life, my interests, I also played ice hockey for that entirety of that time. I don't know why I just picked all these things, that there were no other women around, but at that time, I mean, girls ice hockey's big now, right? But back then, really were very, very few women that played, and so a lot of people would say, why does that lady have boy skates on? And but I first started playing in a men's hockey league, and I was not only the only woman on my team, but I was the only woman in the league at that time, and it was an incredible experience. But you just kind of think about both, emotionally and physically, how challenging that was. But it was something that I was really, really passionate about. So I think the challenges I faced really at that period of my life, both professionally and personally, were really following my dreams and my interests and doing things I really wanted to do, that I was excited about, and just not having, like I say, the kind of other people like me. I think today's young girls and women probably face a little bit of a different challenge. I think now, you really have access to really most or all careers. I think you can see girls and women, entering all different aspects of life, both professionally and personally. I think for you guys, I think, in our SHE majors up there, I think it's going to be more about leadership. And I would really encourage girls to strive for leadership roles, because I think that's where we still have the most room to go. Now I might embarrass some of us in the room right now a little bit, that a couple of weeks ago, and I think this is just a really good example, the Wakefield Daily Item publishes the top 50 paid employees in Wakefield. It's very embarrassing. You don't really want your salary in the newspaper. But the point that I want to make about it is, when that comes out, typically what you see is the leaders of all of the different departments. Well, in that top 50, I am the only woman on that list. And I think that still tells us that we have a long way to go. At some point, I have great colleagues that are men right now, but at some point it would be great to have, a woman chief of police, or a woman chief of the fire department, or a female town administrator, or a female head of the water and light department, or the public works department. Women kind of getting to the top position. And I think this might be a conversation for later in the program, where maybe in the Q&A, but the kind of why that is, that women still at this point still have a ways to go in regard to getting up to the top echelon of leadership positions. But I think that's the next breakthrough and the next challenge. So I think women have to still strive to take those top roles. So
Thank you. Next question is for Susan. What inspired you to focus on initiatives to make Wakefield and our region a better place to live?
Well, I'm really out of my element here. I really do not like public speaking at all. And that was a very interesting question that I had, and I took a long time to think about it, because what I do is actually very personal. So I'm going to read my answer, because I don't want to mess it up for myself. When I was in high school, I remember my dad would always say, one of the worst things to do in life was to get up every morning and not like your job. You want to do something every day that you love. That inspired me to go to college and get a formal education so that I would be prepared to do different things. And at that time, not all women went to college. And not all parents wanted their daughters to go to college. Very often, a lot of my friends, their sons were sent to college and their daughters were not. My dad had 3 girls, no sons, and he was very inspirational for the time that he felt girls could do anything and be anything they wanted. And he was always very vocal about that. I went to Boston College and became a special education teacher. This was in 1978, and special education was expanding due to new regulations. I wanted to make a difference in children's lives. I hope I was a good teacher, but I know that for me it was a very, very good experience. I left teaching to be a full-time mom, and when my son entered school, it seemed like a natural transition to volunteer there. It was such a different experience being on the other side of the desk. But it was just as rewarding working with the parents and the teachers to support the school community. So from there, I entered what I call my next career, one of a self-proclaimed chronic volunteer. For me, it still goes back to doing something I love every day, this time helping the community that I've chosen to live in. And hopefully, I'm making a difference here. Home is more than just your address. The people, the schools, the town government, and the business community are all intertwined. How could I not want to be part of the bigger picture? Complaining, just a waste of time. Working towards solutions is productive and rewarding. My dad was always ready to help family and friends in any way he could. So I believe that if he was here today, he would simply say, giving of your time and talents is simply the right thing to do. Being involved in Wakefield initiatives is also a result of my commitment to myself to be a lifelong learner. I continue to be inspired by the people I work with on these committees that have very different knowledge and very different experiences than my own. I'm happy to say that many of those individuals have also become lifelong friends, and for that, I'm truly grateful.
Thank you, Susan. All right, my next question is for Saritin. Through working with the many organizations you're affiliated with, what are the challenges you see women and children facing today?
Poverty, homelessness, drug abuse, mental health. I find many families facing a multitude of challenges, issues. Some are just basically wanting a roof over their head. I've had the opportunity to work with homeless people, and I decided that what I find most gratifying is to be part of the solution, to create solutions for people that are affected by homelessness, by drug abuse, by mental health, to support the children that I can be an advocate for. And but I find that those are challenges that sometimes we don't see in our community. And I see it on a daily basis working in communities of people that are underprivileged, that are underserved, that don't have the tools, the resources that sometimes we take for granted. And that doing that type of work is very gratifying, and being able to secure housing for families, finding children that are happy with just basic things that sometimes our children take for granted, I find that gratifying. And I mean, those are the biggest challenges that I see working with people affected by domestic violence, around gender violence, children affected by neglect, people that have problems with addiction and mental health. It's the type of work that I find myself destined to do, even though I am by profession a banker, and that pays the bills. But the work that I do, the way that I serve my community outside of Wakefield is what I really love to do and find gratifying. But those are the challenges. So I ask and urge people to get involved, whether it's within your own community or community that are less fortunate than we are, and support different causes so that we can also become part of the solution.
Thank you. Rada, what is most important to girls today in terms of their self-identity? What influences how girls act, look, and think about themselves and others?
Oh, that question probably I could talk about 4 hours, not just 4 minutes. Growing up for me, I grew up in Europe where being fashionable and stylish is the way of life. You would go to a market in the morning at 6 o'clock with wearing high heels. There was not an option, not look top-notch, head to toe, every single day. So I grew up in that environment. However, in a resort area where I grew up, there was at the time only 2 shoe stores and 2 sort of a mini department store. So the chances are you're going to see yourself on the street more likely wearing similar or same things. It was challenging to be different, to find yourself, your own identity, at least for me. So the group of us, as we were able to travel to Italy and grab different fashion and change it up. But I really grew up, we didn't have money or funds to do that often and frequently. So I would change my outfits and my clothes and so on. And just when I went to high school, we had 276 steps we go up. It's an old town with a lot of steps. So I took my kids this summer over there. They saw those steps. So you would look up and you would see sea of washed out jeans in 80s. Every single one of them was all washed out. And I looked at them one day. The very next day, my jeans were dyed in red because I couldn't absolutely be just a follower. So I couldn't really be, so it was very hard for me to come to my own style and what influenced me. So I kind of find my own way. And I would change it all up to be different in a way that other kids in high school had started dyeing their jeans in different colors. So, but now these days, what my children and what all of you, we're influenced by so many channels, so many things that are not necessarily positive and great for our generation. Anybody across the country, a YouTuber, can influence your kid how they talk, how they dress, what they like, what they prefer. So it's really, we have less really grasp on how to handle that as a parent, also as a young girl, and we're a lot of confusion out there now in this what styles or what identity what you're going to be, and not just how you look, but also how to be. So it's very challenging now these days that if somebody says it's important what's inside, it's important also to most women how we look and how we feel in our own skin. So the truth is that choices that we make, how to present ourselves, do matter. And you have to think about it, whatever age you are or profession you are. I remember when I was working in Boston in this firm where I was diamond and gemstone buyer. When I would go to a meeting where I had to make a great deal, I paid attention who is mostly all men, because that's a diamond industry and jewelry industry. Usually it's predominantly where I was dealing with men. So it was really important for me to dress myself in a way not to have any distractions. So I present the powerhouse, when I go in to make a deal or to be able to negotiate. So I know it was important to me, but now I feel that sometimes we forget about that, the power of how you present yourself and pay attention to these details. So it's not only how you look, also how you feel. If I'm sitting here and I'm wearing my jeans that are tight and digging in, and I'm so uncomfortable, I can't breathe, and I wouldn't be comfortable, I wouldn't be confident. My mind would be transferring myself, like how uncomfortable I am. So, or we're worried about if the button's gonna snap and things like that. So it comes to, you only have 20 seconds to present yourself how you look, nobody can see your heart and your brain to that 20 seconds. And that might be your 20 seconds that you're going to meet somebody that's going to make a first impression. Somebody's going to hand you their business card. That may mean that you land your dream job. So being always have your game on as a woman is really important. And I found that every day that I work with women, how important it is for us to feel good, no matter what shape, age, that we look good and feel good. And it's important to pay attention how you dress yourself or present yourself. That's who you're going to attract. That's what energy you're going to project to yourself and other people around you. So if a young girl dresses that it's inspired by the look that it's not appropriate for your age or too much skin showing, or you're going to attract a different type of people attracted to you. So I always recommend to pay attention how you feel, number one, and how you look and how the world is going to see you. So once upon a time we were judged, curly hair needed to be straightened out. The curvy body needed to be shapewear. Now I feel that these days we're seeing in magazine curvy models. Now the body shape we are now more accepting than what it used to be. I mean, it was, really difficult, and sometimes it's hard to keep up all that. So that's something that is changing. Today, women have started to rewrite the history how we want the world to see us. For example, Alicia Keys recently started Stop Wearing Makeup. So we thought the beauty is, how we see beauty is permanent, but it's only really, it's training your eyes to see the beauty and it takes time. And so retraining the eye to see beauty in a different way. So some women would decide to wear like super powerful makeup. That's their choice. It's a great to have choice, so that, you're seen as a certain type of a style of woman. That the way you would be presenting yourself. Now we also see darker skin models in the magazines. Now the beauty used to be, your woman would bleach their skin and, have more bleach, hair and blondes and all that. There was this stigma of what the beauty is, but now we are actually getting better of being accepted in a societal shape and form and colors that it's much better than the way I grow up. I mean, if you're not tip-top sharp, the whole town will talk about you. But now it's a little bit, different, unless you run into me at Market Basket and I'm not tip-top. I'm like, please don't recognize me. I just run in here, but that's rare. I always have to be on tip-top because I have to represent my shop and what I do. When do we feel most beautiful? I was asking my daughter the other day, and do we feel most beautiful when we do what we love? Do we feel most beautiful when we are surrounded with people that we love? Do we feel most beautiful surrounded by our family? There's all sorts of ways of feeling beautiful and great about yourself from inside and out. So you have to always think about it, what it is. How do you want to feel? What energy you're going to attract? So when I dress people in my shop, I dress them according to who they are, what they want to be, what they want to project. Are they single? Are they married? Is their marriage not in a great spot in their lives? So I kind of ask that question very quietly in a way that their energy level starts showing and projecting. And once you reach that, you're just more attracting different energy around you. So keep that in mind, even when you're going for a great interview. Just like Sarah, have your game on and posture and tell yourself you're most beautiful and you're the most smartest woman there is, and they're lucky to even talk to you.
There you have it. Dress for success.
Thank you.
Can I just say, I could never pull off these shoes, but those are amazing shoes.
Those are my power shoes. I need to have a power on.
Thank you, Rada. All right, Nancy. You've worked a long time for Oxfam to help end the injustices that cause poverty. In particular, what have you seen as some of the most pressing issues facing women in the fight for equality?
Thanks, Amy. So for those of you who may not be familiar with Oxfam, it's an international aid agency, and I've worked there for 25 years. I started as a volunteer a very long time ago. So what I know and what I believe is that women's rights are human rights. That let's hear it for International Women's Day. I also believe that traditional, cultural, and institutional discrimination against women is what keeps us from accessing those human rights. At Oxfam, we know that women are disproportionately affected by poverty. We know that women and girls have less power, money, land, protection from violence, and access to critical resources that break the cycle of poverty, like education. We also know that violence against women is a global crisis. More than 1 billion women worldwide will experience physical or sexual violence in their lifetimes. That's 1 in every 3 women. And women who live in poverty are the most impacted of all. We also know that poor pay is one of the grim realities that many women face in the job market, around the world and here in the US as well. Women are the cooks, the cleaners, the caregivers, the workers who make our world go round, but they are undervalued and undercompensated. What's worse, women of color bear the burden of low-wage women's work. Women of color, and especially immigrant women, tend to be clustered in the jobs that pay the least and impose the most arduous conditions. And we also know that some 33 million women and girls worldwide are currently displaced. Those who are unaccompanied, who are pregnant, who are heads of households, who are disabled, who are elderly, are especially vulnerable as they try to find security and safety within their own countries or beyond their borders. So those are what I think of are some of the most pressing issues. A little bit about the solutions. The solutions include changing not only laws, but changing culture. Let me give you a quick example. Some years ago at Oxfam, we worked very hard to change a law in Mozambique. It's called the family law. And what we were fighting against was an acceptance, legal acceptance that women could not inherit land. So in Mozambique, if a husband died, the land would default to the next male relative of that person and would not be, it would not fall to the woman. So we fought very hard to pass a law in Mozambique where that was no longer the case. And we were so excited, we were so proud, we celebrated and celebrated. We thought this was a wonderful achievement. And when we went back a short time later to see what the implementation of that law had resulted in, what we discovered was that it hadn't made any difference. Hadn't made any difference because culturally, they did not accept that reality. It was so ingrained, it was so traditional that women couldn't own land that the law didn't make any difference. So then we had to try something else. We had to try working with the communities and the elders in the communities to try and influence that and make that change. And over a very long period of time, we did begin to see change and movement. but really, really important to understand all the layers and the complexities, the things that keep systemic discrimination in place. I think most people would argue that the single greatest solution, the single most important solution to the discrimination that women around the world experience is access to education. A friend of mine, I was talking to her about this panel, and she said, I had to write it down because it was so great. She said, literacy, the opportunity to learn, to read and write, is so fundamental to a person's independence that without it, essentially, you are in jail for life. I thought that was really powerful. I'll let her know about the applause. So I think, just to wrap up, I think that education is about accessing knowledge. Knowledge is also ultimately about power, and power is how we access our rights.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you to all of the panelists. At this time, we're going to open it up for the Q&A portion with the audience, and we actually want to start with a group of girls from the Galvin Middle School, the Empowering Girls group. So we're going to have 2 microphones floating around, and we'll start with some questions from that group there, and we'll have to give up a couple of those mics there. Great, thank you. Empowering Girls group? Oh, perfect. Oh, great, thank you.
Just gonna ask a question. So, what was So, what was the most difficult obstacle that you had to overcome in your life? Oh, just curious. Yeah, anyone.
I'll answer that. One of the most difficult obstacles was becoming a parent while I was still in high school. And it was a positive thing for me, but it was very challenging. I say that it was positive because having my children totally changed the way I saw life. They were an inspiration and inspired me to do more for myself because it wasn't about me. It was about 2 people that I was responsible for and that didn't ask to come to this world. And yeah, I can't say how instrumental they were in changing my life around. I honestly don't know where I would have been without them in my life had they not come at the time that they came. And of course, without Mr. Murphy and his inspiring words that to this day I think of every single day.
What advice would you give to young women in order to become successful today?
Can I go? Can I try? Can I try? Okay. All right. So I would say, and forgive me, parents, forgive me for saying this, but I would say take lots of risks. Take chances, because you can do it now. You can do it when you're in college. You can do it right after college. And then it gets harder. It gets harder to take those chances. And I would just say, don't let anybody tell you that you can't do something. Just keep at it.
Who has been the most influenced person in your life?
Well, I think that for me, there's been a lot of individuals, men and women, who have influenced my life. But if in thinking, because it's International Women's Day, first I was lucky enough to know both of my grandmothers, And they were born in late 1800s and early 1900s. The world was very, very different then. And they had a lot of challenges, and they had to do a lot of things. So they were inspirational to, as women. They were in a time when husbands couldn't get jobs because it was the Depression. There was, and both of my grandmothers worked in factories and stuff. So they were kind of the original women's libbers. I'm also influenced by my nieces, who have great careers. One of them's a lawyer, one of them is an executive, and it's a struggle. It's a struggle to pay off college loans now. It's a struggle to be balancing work and family. So I'm proud of them. They influence me and they inspire me. But as far as my own career, when I first graduated, I became a middle school special needs teacher. I was 21 years old, and there was a woman who was another special ed teacher that kind of took me under her wing. And she led by example, and she taught me so much about everything I didn't learn in school about being a teacher. Because you realized you really knew nothing when you were thrown out in there. You thought you knew it all, and you didn't. She was very, very inspirational. She worked very hard, and everything she did was through kindness and compassion. So she was very influential, and I hope that a lot of the things that I have done in my life and will do in my future is to also have that kindness and compassion. I think it's important.
Any other questions in the audience? Oh, right over here in front.
What made you want to be a strong woman?
I love that question. Many different things. For me, actually started very, very early age. My parents got divorced. They were one of the very first parents got divorced. There was not even a word divorce at that time. Nobody was getting divorced except my parents. So it's an early age. That broken home family, it made me being so independent, and it forced me to be strong and to fight through. And that was like one of the things that where my dad got remarried, I did not let his wife to even comb my hair, touch me. I was really mean. I know, I was just a kid. But the point is,
You still are mean.
I am. So that really forced me to be independent, to and later I got along fine with her, but that was the one. And there was another strong woman where I lived in Paris, my distant cousin Dolores, who worked really hard for 10, maybe 15 years in Paris and saved up every penny, and invested it in this private bank in Switzerland. To one day, that entire bank, everything disappeared, empty, completely gone. Everything that she ever worked was disappeared. And for her to watch her go through that and bounce back to she's one of the extremely wealthy women to this day from losing everything. So it really, no matter what it is, you can always bounce back. You can always find strength within you, regardless what it is, even the worst cases. So that's one of the things, and that I always I'll always remember how much she was fighting and losing everything. Really everything. In those days, she had like $200,000 saved up, and that's a lot of money, and 20 years ago, 30 years ago. So that was, those are the two, instances that I feel like that's what kind of helped me go through.
I want to say that girls like you inspire us to be strong women.
Anybody else have a question for the panelists? So we have a couple hands up. Maybe. Okay, we'll give you the mic so the cameras can hear.
Okay, so as a lot of high school girls sitting over here, I feel like on a day-to-day basis, we're constantly facing stereotypes that have just been completely like embellished into our society, and it's almost like you don't notice them because they're so like they're just happening so often. And so like Dr. Smith, my question's more for you. I want to know like what is your advice on how we should break those stereotypes and just like how we should break those stereotypes.
Thank you. That's a great question, and thank you for asking it, because that really, when I was talking a little bit earlier about leadership, that's actually really where I was headed. And I think it's about stereotypes. You know, when you think about who you asked, you know, what makes you want to be strong? Like, what's a strong leader? Well, my belief is that being a great leader is equal parts strength and compassion, equal parts being fearless and gentle. You know, it's a combination of those things. And I think in society, people sometimes think of some of the more feminine qualities or things that they associate with the feminine gender. You know, women can be, you know, not exclusively, but can be very empathetic, can be very loving, can be very kind, can be very compassionate, that somehow that doesn't equate with strength. Well, it's really the opposite, right? I mean, that is strength. And so I think that we have to keep fighting against those stereotypes, and that we can present ourselves as very strong and fearless and courageous. Right? Earlier I talked about being brave, and we can do those things, but we can also be, and we have to be genuinely who we are. And being compassionate is a wonderful thing to be, and it's really important in leadership to have that. So I think combating the stereotypes and calling people out on them, and not being afraid. Do we have any diversity leaders in the group? Or, you know, the diversity leader group that's at the Wakefield High School? And okay, we have a diversity leader right here. Thank you. So one of the roles of the diversity leaders is to kind of help combat stereotypes of all kinds. But certainly some of them are gender bias. And so I really encourage the young girls and women in this audience to strive to be leaders, but your definition of leadership and what that means, and your definition of strong and what that means. So I hope that helps answer your question a little bit.
My question actually relates to that. It's about Mozambique. I was wondering if it was women as well as men who resisted change, and if we had to break some stereotypes so that they could consider themselves worthy of owning the property or consider themselves valuable.
Yeah, thanks for the question. And it was absolutely embedded throughout the society there. So it was women and men. Interestingly, though, as I mentioned, it was through the village elders that we approached the solution. So it was, and they were typically men. Yeah.
Any other questions from the audience? Anyone else have any? I think in the front. Oh, way up there.
Hi. I'm wondering, and I feel like this is a question that a lot of us will have, but this is okay. Wondering if any of you, I have 4 boys, and I'm trying to balance, you know, showing them the strong woman that I think I am, and balancing the stereotypes that you were speaking of, and really trying to have them respect me as a strong woman, also as a mother, and also raising them as young men. And I think one of the things that I struggle with in trying to be a strong woman is also making them strong men. And I feel like, you know, I'm doing a lot to come here and listen to the girls, and I love listening to young women and support them, but I feel like I need to do work at home with my young boys so that they can be a part of this, you know, and it's a hard balance, I think, finding they're boys, and boys tend to lean this way, and you're like, come on over here, you know, and so I don't know if anyone else struggles with finding that balance where you are raising young men who you want to support strong young women and myself. I want them to look up to me. That's not always the way it is.
Is that because you're their mom, or because? No, I have two boys, so I'm.
As they get older, you know, they naturally gravitate and associate with their father, but they know what questions they have to ask me, you know, and I feel like they're very stereotypical, again, and fitting in those same roles, even though I may do all the other things that may not be stereotypical, to them they still lean towards that way. So it's a funny balance. I struggle with it, and trying our best, and I think just didn't know if anyone else has any advice in that way.
I actually struggle a little bit because I still believe that, and not because stereotyping, because of gender difference, I still believe that because maybe the way I grew up, a man should open the door for a woman. And I have a girl and a boy, and I would say to my son, hold the door for us. And so why would I? Because we're girls. So it really is like you almost, it's like it's okay to behave like a woman and still be strong, and still make sure that the men that they're actually kind to women, nice to women. Until very recently, you know, I would say good night to my son, and he's over there listening. He knows it's true. I would always, as one of my every night would say, promise me you'll be nice to women. Because I want him to be kind and nice to women. Because look at any individual woman, what we do on a daily basis, how much responsibility we do have. We now, you know, earn a living. We have a household. We're so much busier than ever before, and therefore, it's the kindness. And now that we're talking about violence against women and all that, I think one of the most important that a mother, we raise future men. So if we can make sure that they're kind to women and respectful, that's really the best you can do. And that's we hope to you know, now these days, if a woman complain about how a guy or a boyfriend treats her, he was somebody's son. He had a mother. So we have to really make sure that we talk to our young sons to any age, all the way up to whatever we have a little bit of influence on them, to embed that respect for women, as much as we want to respect them.
I have a son. I have an only child. He's a son, and he's 29 years old. And I think that during the raising years, that's an interesting word, that raising your son, because you think a lot, and I think you overthink a lot of things, that this is what I should be doing, this is what I shouldn't be doing. But now that he is older and out of the house, you lead by example. I think that he is a good man. I think he is good to women. And that doesn't mean that he doesn't have his ups and downs, and he doesn't have his own unique personality. But lead by example. For example, I kept my maiden name. So that was just a normal thing to do that he saw. So did my sisters. And he went to kindergarten, and he had Mrs. Curley, which he learns a lot, because you'll learn a lot in kindergarten. And he came home one day and he said, "Ma, there's something really weird." And I said, "What is it?" And he goes, "Mrs. Curley was talking about her family. And it was Bill Curley and Jim Curley and this Curley. Isn't that weird? They all have the same last name." So he was 5 years old, and I had to explain to him that, well, that's a little more common. But I think that you and your husband probably are showing him much more by example than you could ever, talking is great, but I think they really learn by example. And if you have a very open communication with them and that you treat each other as respected human beings, I think that goes so much further than we realize. And then you look at them and you say, okay, we did okay.
I want to thank all the panelists again for coming tonight and for answering our questions. At this time, I would like to welcome back She Major for their closing performance.
Just to get a glimpse beyond this illusion. I was soaring ever higher, but I flew too high. Though my eyes could see, I still was a blind man. Though my mind could think, I still was a madman. I hear the voices when I'm dreaming. I can hear them say, carry on my wayward son. There'll be peace when you are done. Lay your weary head to rest. Don't you cry no more. No! Carry on, you will always remember. Carry on, nothing equals the splendor. Now your life's no longer empty. Surely heaven waits for you. Carry on, my wayward son. There'll be peace when you are done. Lay your weary head to rest. Don't you cry no more. Carry on, my wayward son. There'll be peace when you are done. Lay your weary head to rest. Don't you cry no more.
Thank you, C Major, and good luck this weekend. Thank you again, everyone who came out, who asked questions. I know there were many more questions that we wanted to ask tonight, but I know we're a little pressed for time. Special thanks to Ms. Morell and the Visual and Performing Arts Department, the Savings Bank Theater, for allowing us to use the space, the school support staff, who's going to be setting up and cleaning up for us, Tom at WCAT Studios for filming everything, and all who have supported the Wakefield Human Rights Commission. If you ever want to join a meeting, we meet the third Wednesday of every month at 6:30 p.m. at WCAT Studios. Anyone's welcome to attend, and please like us on Facebook so you can keep up with our events. Thank you all.